It was the morning of May 14th, 2026, a quiet farming town in Tochigi Prefecture, Japan. There, a resident crossed paths with a strange man. The man was wearing heavy black clothing, completely out of place for the May weather, his face hidden behind a mask. In his hands, he carried what looked like a sickle or crowbar. Immediately suspicious, the resident started questioning him. What could he be doing? The man mumbled at first, then answered like this: "I'm going to do my best." This answer made little sense. Do his best at what, exactly? The only thing that seemed clear was the direction the man was heading in. He was walking towards a single farmhouse, a grand family home well known to those in the local area. Before long, this house would gain much wider notoriety when it became the scene of a shocking, violent crime. On the surface, the incident looked like nothing more than a brutal robbery turned murder, audaciously committed in broad daylight. But once the police caught the suspected perpetrators, shocking facts began to surface. Facts that revealed this case was far more complex than it had first seemed. This is the story of the Tochigi Prefecture robbery murder case. If you or your child spent years growing up on social media and experienced serious mental health struggles, you should hear this. Recently, a jury ordered Meta and YouTube to pay millions for their role in designing and promoting addictive platforms. They knew their apps could contribute to anxiety, depression, and body image issues, but didn't share those risks while prioritizing profits. The recent historic verdict underscores the consequences of those decisions. Now, Morgan & Morgan is stepping up to hold these platforms accountable for the harm they caused. Click the link in my bio to take a short quiz. You may be entitled to a potential recovery of over $1,000. Kaminokawa is a scenic rural town in southeastern Tochigi. Traditional Japanese houses stand spaced apart between verdant rice paddies. The morning of May 14th was bright and peaceful. Farmhands working in the fields and local residents just going about their business in one of the safest communities imaginable. At 9:28 a.m., police received a call from a frantic-sounding man. His report went like this: "It's a robbery. My family was beaten with a bar. The culprits fled on foot." It was a desperate cry for help. As police and paramedics approached the scene, they were greeted by views of an attractive, sprawling home protected by a high wall. But nothing was as safe or tranquil as it might have seemed. They soon discovered that the glass of a large window connecting the first floor living room to the garden was shattered, and the inside of the house bore clear signs of having been ransacked. A knife and a crowbar had been abandoned at the scene. The man who had made the 110 call was a 68-year-old with the family name Tomiyama. His eldest and second sons, both in their 40s, had been working in a nearby field when they received a call from their father begging for help. As soon as they heard their father's terrified pleas, the brothers rushed home. There they encountered the intruders, men in dark clothing and ski masks, wielding crowbars. The perpetrators immediately turned on both sons, striking them with their makeshift weapons, before eventually fleeing the scene. Both sons sustained head injuries and were later taken to the hospital. The attackers had also slain the Tomiyama's pet dog, silencing the animal so that the sound of barking wouldn't give them away. But by far the worst of the brutality had been reserved for the family matriarch, 69-year-old Eiko Tomiyama. She was discovered in the first floor living room, lying in a pool of blood, no longer alive. The state of Eiko's body was horrific. She had sustained more than 20 stab wounds, some of them deep enough to reach her internal organs. The cause of death was hemorrhagic shock from the wounds to her chest and other parts of her body. A 69-year-old woman brutally murdered in her own living room. This degree of violence was too extreme to be written off as a simple robbery gone wrong. As the police investigation began, two questions dominated. How had this peaceful country farmhouse become a target for such a horrific crime? And who exactly were the people who committed it? Before we go on, let's take a moment to talk about Eiko Tomiyama and her family. The Tomiyamas were longtime residents of Kaminokawa. Past generations had made the family fortune growing burdock roots, and so their home earned the local nickname Kobo Mansion, meaning burdock mansion. The house had even been featured on television, showcasing the lifestyle of a wealthy farming family in rural Japan. At the time of the incident, Burdock Mansion was home to company executive Eiko Tomiyama, Eiko's husband, their eldest son and his wife, and one grandchild. Neighbors described Eiko as more than just a privileged woman from a wealthy family. She was a well-liked pillar of the local community, allowing neighboring residents to use the karaoke space on her property for free. The farm belonging to the family was incorporated, and several Vietnamese employees lived on the grounds. Eiko didn't seem like the kind of person who would make enemies. And yet, on the morning of May 14th, 2026, she and her family became the target of a vicious, premeditated attack. Police immediately set out to track down the culprits. It didn't take them long to find their first suspect. Just 500 meters from the scene, police spotted a man dressed in dark clothing and a ski mask. But once they apprehended him, they made another shocking discovery. This man, who had seemingly just participated in a violent break-in and murder, was barely a man at all. He was a boy, just 16 years old. The boy turned out to be a high school student from Sagamihara City, Kanagawa Prefecture, over 130 kilometers away from Kaminokawa. Strangely, he carried no wallet or smartphone. It was as though he had surrendered his everyday belongings in exchange for a crowbar, then carried out an unimaginably vicious act. But why? After questioning the teenager, police arrested him on suspicion of involvement in the robbery murder at Burdock Mansion. And over the next few days, they moved to round up his accomplices. They knew that some of the perpetrators had fled the scene in a white luxury sedan, the same car the group had arrived in. Another had actually hitchhiked home from the scene. With the first suspect's testimony and knowledge of the getaway to hand, police were quickly able to identify the remaining suspects. On the night of May 15th, police made their second arrest. This suspect, too, was just 16 years old, another high schooler from Sagamihara City. The following morning, May 16th, a third 16-year-old, known to be an acquaintance of the second boy, was taken into custody. Finally, that same evening, a 16-year-old male high school student, this time living in Kawasaki City, was also arrested. With that, all four suspects, identified as the on-site perpetrators, were in custody. Every one of them a minor. One scene, in particular, encapsulated the shock of the Japanese public. When one of the boys was transferred to the prosecutor's office, his entire body was covered with a blue tarp. But beneath that tarp, the socks he was wearing were caught on camera. They were childish socks patterned with stars. Those star-patterned socks became a symbol, all too plain, of just how young this boy still was. Once police were able to question the boys, they arrived at another disturbing conclusion. Not one of them had any acquaintance with Eiko Tomiyama or her family. She had been a stranger to them, a woman they had never met, in a house they had never been to, 2 whole prefectures away. So why was Burdock Mansion their target? And how did they come to commit such a shocking crime in the first place? When questioned, one of the boys spelled out his motivation, and it was especially cold-blooded. He stated that he expected to receive payment for carrying out the crime, several million yen for helping commit a robbery at Burdock Mansion, a sum unimaginable to most high schoolers. The other boys likely told a similar story. The connections between them were loose. They were schoolmates, acquaintances, not a close-knit group of friends plotting together of their own accord, but a casually connected team of accomplices chasing the same reward, cash, in exchange for a criminal act. Far from coming as a shock, however, this explanation must have sounded all too familiar to the Tochigi police, because this wasn't the first time they'd heard about this kind of case. Between August and November 2024, a string of 18 connected robberies occurred across Tokyo and other nearby prefectures. The perpetrators were mostly young people in their 20s. Few were seasoned criminals, and police had little trouble arresting most of them. Among the suspects, several admitted to having been recruited as part of a yami-baito, a Japanese phrase that literally translates to dark part-time job. Yami-baito are schemes that lure young people into committing criminal acts by dangling big money as bait. They are often advertised on social media platforms with phrases like short-term, high earnings, and no experience required. For young people desperate to make money, opportunities like this can seem too good to pass up. Another method of recruitment is word of mouth. A young person hears about the chance to make a huge amount of money from an acquaintance or someone in their grade. They say, "Hey, let's do this together." And the target lets their guard down. If that guy is going to do it, he might think, how bad can it be? And the promise of a huge payout can convince young people to commit acts they might otherwise have found unthinkable. In January 2023, in the city of Komae, Tokyo, another case with disturbing similarities to the Tochigi robbery murder occurred. In this incident, attackers forced entry into the home of a 9-year-old woman by posing as delivery workers. The assailants bound the woman before beating her to death with crowbars and making off with cash, valuables, and jewelry. In May that same year, another robbery took place at a luxury watch shop in Tokyo's Ginza district. In front of baffled daytime shoppers, 3 young men, wearing face masks and brandishing crowbars, smashed up display cabinets and ran away with $700,000 worth of valuable goods. All 3 were apprehended by police in less than an hour, following a disorganized attempt to escape through the crowded streets. Young, amateurish perpetrators, brazen attempts at daylight robbery, break-ins escalating to the point of lethal violence. All of these signs point to yami-baito. Naive, disposable foot soldiers carrying out reckless crimes for the promise of a huge payday. But who exactly is making these promises? Who are the people masterminding these schemes? The cunning structure of this type of crime means these questions can be difficult to answer, and that's all part of their design. Yami-baito recruiters manipulate inexperienced subordinates into accepting illegal work, all through online channels. They find workers on social media and send communications through anonymous apps like Signal and Telegram. Concealed behind a screen, these ringleaders dictate not only the details of a job and the division of roles, but even give instructions down to the level of violence that should be inflicted at the scene. During the 2024 string of yami-baito robberies, the handlers sent instructions to their subordinates to punch victims in the stomach and break their fingers. Once a crime has been committed, these ringleaders disappear into the digital ether, leaving their underlings to take the heat from police. Disposable criminal labor, exploited so that masterminds can evade justice. In the case of the Tochigi robbery murder, the 4 teenage boys responsible didn't even appear to be the first recruits to have made the attempt. At the Tomiyama family home, suspicious circumstances had been mounting in the weeks leading up to the crime. First, in early April, a burglary occurred at the home of Eiko Tomiyama's second son. Among the articles stolen was an item bearing the address and information of Burdock Mansion, the family home where the robbery murder later took place. And that wasn't all. From mid-April, the family and their neighbors reported sightings of multiple suspicious vehicles, including a motorcycle and later a black compact van repeatedly passing back and forth near the mansion. On May 6, police, who had been patrolling the area following the Tomiyama family's reports, arrested a 41-year-old man from Ibaraki Prefecture. The license plates on his car were shown to be stolen. When questioned, the man admitted to following instructions received as part of a yami-baito. He said he had also been told to prepare a balaclava. So who exactly was targeting the Tomiyama family home so relentlessly? To find the individuals responsible, police launched a full-scale pursuit. The boys' statements, the tracing of security camera footage, most importantly, the origin of the white foreign car used in the crime. They followed every available clue. It didn't take long for the evidence to point towards two figures. The suspects were 28-year-old Kaito Takemae and 25-year-old Miyu Takemae, a young married couple living in Yokohama. What do we know about this couple? Both Kaito and Miyu were reportedly unemployed at the time of the incident. Neighbors described the husband Kaito fondly. He did have tattoos, widely considered a symbol of organized crime in Japan, but people who knew him said he came across as a warm, friendly person who was even good with children. Kaito and his wife Miyu had a child of their own, a daughter just a few months old. To their neighbors, they looked like nothing more than an ordinary young family. But the truth was far darker. At around 1:30 a.m. on May 17th, police pursued Kaito Takemae all the way to the international departures lobby at Haneda Airport's Terminal 3, where he was arrested while waiting to board a flight to South Korea. Had they arrived a moment too late, he might have slipped out of their reach altogether. Around noon that same day, police found Miyu Takemae cloistered in a business hotel room together with her 7-month-old daughter. Miyu was arrested on the spot. After the arrests, police publicly identified Kaito and Miyu Takemae as the alleged handlers who had sent the 4 high schoolers to commit robbery at Burdock Mansion. Authorities believe the Takemaes also entered Tochigi Prefecture on the day of the crime, riding in a separate vehicle from the white car driven by the 4 boys. The Takemaes denied the allegations, stating that they had nothing to do with the case. The boys arrested as the perpetrators, however, gave a completely different account. They stated that they carried out the robbery murder entirely at the couple's request, insisting that they only ever did what they were told, receiving instructions from the Takemaes by smartphone. Some of the boys even claimed that they were threatened by the Takemaes, who told them their own families would be harmed or killed if they didn't go through the crime as instructed. But there were still more pieces to this puzzle. On May 30th, an 18-year-old man from Sagamihara City was arrested for violating the Employment Security Act. He was accused of introducing 2 of the 4 boys as part of the yami-baito recruitment scheme via a messaging app. Yet, despite having made 7 arrests, police continued to believe that they had still not found the ultimate mastermind behind the plan to rob Burdock Mansion. One key clue supported that possibility. This was the white luxury foreign car the boys had used in the crime. The vehicle had been found and seized by police in a parking lot at a park near the home of one of the boys arrested on May 15th. But the car didn't belong to any of the boys' relatives. Early on, it was believed that this car had been provided to the boys by the Takemae couple. The 4 boys, none of whom were old enough to drive, picked up the car at the roadside location and drove to the scene. But the car wasn't registered in the couple's name. It wasn't a rental car, and it hadn't been reported stolen. So who did the vehicle belong to? Based on these circumstances, police began sketching out a new theory. They believed a third party provided this vehicle to the Takemaes, and the couple then passed it on to the boys in order to facilitate the crime. If this theory was correct, it would mean the Tochigi case went beyond yami-baito. In fact, it pointed to a very specific type of organized crime. In Japan, this kind of group is called tokuryu, shorthand for an anonymous, fluid criminal gang. Unlike the established Yakuza organizations, with initiated members and distinct hierarchies, tokuryu have no fixed personnel. Recruits are gathered in an ad hoc fashion through social media or by word of mouth, often for the purpose of carrying out a single crime. In a Tokuryu network, one person recruits collaborators, another provides a vehicle, another commits the crime directly. It's a pyramid built on shifting sands. And as with any pyramid, there always has to be someone at the top. But who? An examination of Kaito Takamaya's digital devices revealed that he had been communicating with another person via encrypted messaging apps in the period leading up to the crime. This individual, going by the alias Kaz, wrote several messages in code, making them hard to decipher. But one message was revealed to show that Kaz had offered Takemaya 40% of 100 million yen, which is around 618,000 US dollars, to assemble a group who would carry out the robbery in Kaminokawa. Kaz had also sent Takamaya information about the target address. By May 29th, police had identified Kaz. He was Kazuhiko Masuda, a 48-year-old Japanese man of unknown address and occupation. His name was known, but so much else about him remained a mystery, not least of all his whereabouts. A warrant was issued for Masuda's arrest, but catching him would not be easy. Security footage from Narita International Airport 3 days after the incident showed Masuda boarding a plane to China. He was undisguised, holding a suitcase behind him, several bags slung over his shoulder. This footage revealed that Masuda had succeeded, where Kaito Takemaya had failed. He had fled the country. Realizing Masuda had escaped abroad, Japanese police alerted Interpol, who placed Masuda on their international wanted list. An Interpol red notice publishing Masuda's photo and identifying details online called on international law enforcement to apprehend him. The notice described Masuda as 162 centimeters tall and named his hometown as Saga City, Saga Prefecture, Japan. Masuda's successful flight from the country demonstrates how effective the Tokuryu scheme can be for those at the top. While the police were busy rounding up the teenage perpetrators and tracking down the Takemayas, the puppet master who had been pulling all of the strings slipped right through their fingers. Authorities believe that Masuda left China and traveled onwards to Southeast Asia, where he is said to have contacts. The Japanese Foreign Ministry also issued an order for Masuda to surrender his passport, making his international stay illegal. Both the Tochigi Prefectural Police Department and the National Police Agency in Japan have declared their intent to send investigators overseas as soon as they are able to track down Masuda's location. For now, however, Masuda's exact whereabouts remain unknown. While his underlings await judgment in police custody, the man who may have orchestrated the entire scheme has, at least for now, evaded justice. Eiko Tomiyama was a complete stranger to the boys accused of killing her. She was not someone who had inspired grudges or hatred. She was simply starting an ordinary day as always in the peaceful home she shared with her family. But at some point, that home and that family became targets for a criminal organization without a face. A disparate network of people connected by anonymous apps and encrypted messages, bound by promises of money and threats of violence. In the end, 4 teenage boys, young enough to have been Eiko's grandsons, smashed the window of her home and savagely ended her life. They emerged from a digital world where young people can be driven to kill based on nothing more than anonymous orders and the lure of cash. How many more cases like this will we see going forward? How many more young people will be led astray by a classmate or a social media message, drawing them to unspeakable acts in exchange for a price that seems too good to be true? And how many more criminals will throw these young people to the wolves while they get away with murder? For now, Eiko's family have no choice but to pick up the broken pieces of their lives. Through police, Eiko's husband asked the media to leave the family alone. "Today, my wife died and my sons were gravely injured," he said. "Our family is deeply broken. Please don't mind us and leave us in peace." That is all for today. Thanks for watching.